There are some things in life that just shouldn't be forgotten, like bringing your keys when you leave the house, setting your fantasy lineup, and most importantly, having Hidden Valley Ranch to watch the game. Especially if wings are on the menu. Those creamy, zesty Cool Ranch flavors take each spicy, savory bite to an unforgettable level. Hidden Valley Ranch, only serious about flavor.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
O'Reilly! You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to break down the latest injury news in Birdland as Grayson Rodriguez and Andrew Kittredge are confirmed to begin this season on the IL, while Gunnar Henderson's status for opening day is uncertain. Then we'll take questions from our mailbag. But first, Orioles on the Verge is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Now, at the beginning of camp, we were feeling pretty good about the Orioles' health. We got through that opening press conference from Mike Elias, and there was no major injury news aside from Trevor Rogers and Jorge Mateo. And it seemed that the Orioles would go into the season with their bullpen and their rotation intact. That will not be the case. So as reliever Andrew Kittredge, who the team signed in the offseason, the free agent, is now expected to miss multiple months because of a left knee injury. Meanwhile, Grayson Rodriguez was pulled from a start last week because of an issue with his right triceps / back of the elbow. He has been placed on the IL and will not pitch and will not be healthy by opening day. Now, when you hear about a triceps elbow concern with the pitcher, the worst case scenario is Tommy John surgery. So far, the Orioles are not indicating that that's going to be the case for Rodriguez, but we have to see how things progress here in the next few weeks. Meanwhile, Gunnar Henderson continues to be sidelined with an intercostal strain that is affecting his side. The Orioles hopeful that Henderson is going to be ready for opening day, but as we get closer to the start of the regular season, Henderson has not appeared in a game now in over a week. So a lot of questions right now concerning the health of this team as we get further into camp. And let's start with Rodriguez. And Nick, I'll start with you here. So far, there's two ways you could look at it. On one hand, this is another injury for a pitcher who's just coming off a lat injury, expected to be a really key contributor to this team this year. On the other hand, right now, at least it seems like he might be able to get by without Tommy John surgery, especially if this injury is not affecting the ligament, but we don't know at this point.
I'm throwing my hands up because I don't know anymore. All the reports seem like he's not about to hit up Garrett Cole and carpool down to Texas together for surgery. But again, Grayson came out of that game and was just like, yeah, I just wasn't feeling it today, and just it's nothing. And then now here we go. He's shut down for a little bit. So I don't really know what to think about the injury updates. I'm not like spiraling, but it's frustrating because yes, there's depth to cover Grayson missing a month But at the same time, like, you didn't want to test that depth here. Be talking about testing that depth here on March 10th. And this is 3 years now in a row. We're talking about another injury with Grayson. And this was supposed to be the year that, like, he really started to take off. Look how well he pitched. Look at how well this team performed when Grayson was on the mound last year. And, you know, you don't go out and get the frontline starter, expecting Grayson to take this big step forward here in year 3. And now he's going to be pushed back, hopefully a couple of weeks. But I honestly, I don't know what to think. And I think that's more so just me, like, trying to protect myself and not start spiraling, because I remember spiraling pretty hard last year with Kyle Bradish stuff, and remain optimistic that he will be back in a couple weeks. And there is no ligament damage and he's okay. But yeah, this is certainly not an ideal way to, I'd be not the ideal way, or not the ideal conversation I'd like to be having here on March 10th right now.
Yeah, obviously it sucks because he was supposed to be the guy. It was either him or Eflin probably going on opening day. But, I mean, I see a lot of freaking out, as usual, on Orioles Twitter or Orioles social media platforms. And it's like no Gunnar Henderson, no Grayson Rodriguez. I mean, Gunnar, he'll be fine. We'll get to him in a bit. But, I mean, you don't get a cortisone shot for a ligament damage. I think they would know by now if it was something to do with the ligament. So it sounds like maybe bone spurs, worst case scenario, which, again, that's just speculation. But I think a couple weeks off, hopefully it's better, if not a little bit longer. But I don't think this is going to be a case where he goes under the knife. Doesn't seem like there's any indication of that. So, you know, not ideal, but this is why this offseason, when they couldn't get that frontline starter, was about building the depth. And I think this is exactly why, for circumstances like this. Hopefully he's back by the beginning of June, and you can get Cade Povich in there, who's had an amazing spring training and looked fantastic. Get him a shot in the rotation out of the jump. And hopefully everyone can fill in for him until he can get healthy. And then he comes in and then he breaks out and is, you know, the guy we know he can be, but he just needs to do it consistently over the course of a full season, maybe in 2026. And there's still time to get top of the rotation arm. Sandy Alcantara is still out there. We'll talk about him, I'm sure, a little bit later in this episode. But, man, if it's between us and the Yankees, like going after Sandy Alcantara, I'm almost willing to give up my youngest to get him in the Orioles uniform. So.
Yeah, I think that what's tough about Rodriguez's injury, it's tough in multiple respects, but there had been, I think, a little bit of a shift among Orioles fans in the last few weeks where, okay, you're upset they didn't get a starter, but then the team's pretty much healthy coming into camp, and you look at the rotation 1 through 5, and you figure, well, if the lineup and the bullpen are better, there's at least enough here to buy time. If you need to go out and get an ace at the deadline, you do it then. For now, you've got enough to be competitive. But a lot of that, I do think, was riding on Rodriguez's health and success. And, Nick, I agree with you. It is disappointing, especially when you consider that you look at his last 3 seasons, 2024, 2 IL stints, including one that ended his season early. 2023 was mostly healthy, but that came on the heels of a 2022 in which he was shut down early because of a lat injury. So I know that all 3 of us believe in Rodriguez's promise and that there's a really high-level major league starting pitcher there. But he's going to have to clear this hurdle at some point.
Who's the guy that does the health grades? What's Grayson's health grade right now? I don't imagine it's very good at this point. It's just, I don't know. It's one thing. And I don't immediately go to we should have done this, we should have done that this offseason. It's just, I feel frustrated for Grayson because I want to see Rodriguez on this mound healthy because I hate the labels. He's an ace, he's a 1, he's a 2. Just give me 5 starters at this point. I really don't care. And as far as the regular season goes, but Grayson Rodriguez, like you said, we know what type of pitcher he can become, and he flashed that last year. He showed it for a long stretch. He didn't just flash it. He showed it for a good chunk of the season last year. And to see this young arm go down like this, and, you know, in the back of my mind, whenever you're talking about injuries and you make jokes about pitcher injuries, in the back of my mind, it was always, Grayson hasn't had that serious injury yet. When is it going to happen? But you shove that down and just put that dark thought away. And here we are, talking about this yet again. So I don't know. I mean, you can look around the rest of the league and be like, yeah, Garrett Cole. Who was it for the Mariners? Which one was it?
George
Gilbert?
Kirby.
Kirby with the shoulder going to be shut down. Looks like about a month. Like it's on and on and on. The pitching injuries already piling up. Francisco Alvarez, catcher for the Mets. Like the injuries are piling up already. But I don't care about the other teams and their injuries. Like it's this one stings. And when it's 3 years in a row now, it's kind of like, all right, what now? There's always going to be this like watching Grayson Rodriguez outings. I feel like at this point of, what was that? Why'd he wince? Like, I hate that.
Yeah. And it's interesting that he was altering his delivery a little bit this year to try to take more pressure off of his lats, which have been an issue in the past, pulling muscles there. But maybe that had something to do with this arm injury. I don't know. I mean, either it's just he's got to get used to it and get through that soreness, or he's got to go back to the old delivery, or it has nothing to do with it whatsoever. I don't know. I'm sure the team does. But yeah, it's just really, really unfortunate. But he's still only 25. So honestly, the way pitchers develop, he could be a Kevin Gausman where it's like he shows stretches of great stuff, but never really puts it together. And then he signs a free agent contract at some point and takes off from there, kind of like Gausman and Arrieta and other horror stories of Orioles past. But I don't think we're to that point yet, but it is certainly frustrating.
We'll talk about this a little bit more when we get into the mailbag segment in a moment, but I do want to go to Kittredge and Henderson's injury situations, which, as I mentioned at the top of the show, are very different. Kittredge, we know right now, is going to miss multiple months, and it is a setback for an Orioles bullpen that was counting on Kittredge to come in after signing a 1-year, $10 million deal to pick up some middle to high leverage situations out of the bullpen. I think that how I view the bullpen is that it starts and ends with Felix Bautista in terms of effectiveness and where you're going to be able to put guys in the roles. Nevertheless, I know there are going to be times here in the next few months where the Orioles cough up a lead in the 7th inning, or the bullpen can't keep a game close, that you think it would have been nice to have had Kittredge out there in that spot, and the Orioles don't have him. Henderson, we still don't know exactly what's going to happen. He may be ready by opening day. He may not be. It seems like the Orioles are starting to make some contingency plans by putting Jackson Holliday at shortstop, and we'll talk about their shortstop options in a little bit, but just want to get your guys' thoughts on these two situations with Kittredge and Henderson.
I have no concern about Gunnar. I think it's a non-story, to be honest. If he's slow out of the gates, so be it. There's 162 games. Kittredge injury, to me, it's a bummer just because he's the easiest of the three, obviously, to replace, and I think the Orioles can replace him. But what hurts is like the whole Jeff Hoffman situation. You don't sign him because of the medicals. He signs with Toronto. He runs his mouth. The Orioles pivot to Kittredge, and now Kittredge is out for a big chunk of the season. And I didn't really have strong opinions when we signed him until like we hopped on it. And when we were talking about the signing and talking through kind of the ripple effects of what the signing could mean for the rest of the bullpen, that's when I started feeling like, all right, I really do like the signing. And that was like the first time where it seemed like Orioles social media was united, that everybody liked the signing. But yeah, I just felt better after us talking about it. Like, all right, we're going to get guys back in roles that are better suited for them, right? You can kick Yennier Cano out a little bit more, not the 8th inning guy, right? You can mix and match Sir Anthony Dominguez and Kittredge and whoever else there in the 8th inning, because we knew before it was officially announced, I think everyone knew Felix Bautista was going to be slow played at the beginning of the season, returning from Tommy John surgery, and have that veteran presence there in Kittredge felt good. But now he's going to be gone. I do feel confident, though, in rosters are going to shake up like crazy over the next couple of days, next couple of weeks, as spring training wraps up and rosters become finalized. We know Michael Ice is going to be scouring that waiver wire, and you're going to be able to replace Kittredge, I think. So I'm not too concerned. I still like this bullpen. I think we have a bullpen question later on, and in that, I'm going to give a very confident answer with this bullpen. But it is, again, a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, it's certainly ironic to say the least. But just looking at what's it, a debridement, that's basically a knee cleanup. I saw 4 to 6 week recovery time. Just say 8 weeks because he's a little bit older, and then a rehab stint. He'll be back sometime in May. So it's not like it's some huge loss, hopefully, as long as recovery goes well, as you would hope. Gunnar, yeah, I'm not worried. I would be honestly surprised if he's not running down the orange carpet on opening day in the starting lineup. But if he's has to start on the IL for a week, it'll be okay. It's not, I've seen people say we don't even have our star player. It's like, come on, he's going to be fine. It's just a ramp bump injury, a little bit of a twisted rib muscle. He's going to be good. And Felix Bautista looked good today. Seems like he's adding a tick of velocity every time out. So I think he should be good to go pretty early on. I think he'll crack 100, I think, in his first appearance in the regular season. That's my prediction.
Yeah, velocity climbing up for Bautista in his outing against the Pirates on Monday night. And I'll go now into our mailbag, starting with this first question from Seth. What would a possible pitching move or lack of a move tell you about the Orioles' confidence in Grayson, Kittredge, and others to come back from injury? I'll start with Bob.
I honestly don't think it really much matters either way. The Orioles front office is not one I think that operates out of like fear or panic. Like they'll take their time, even if Grayson's going to be back pretty quickly, or if he's going to be out for the first half. I think they wouldn't really change anything. I think they set themselves up depth wise, like talked about earlier, to handle something like this. And I still think they're always looking for upgrades, even if everybody was healthy. I still think they would be talking to the Marlins about Sandy Alcantara for either way. So honestly, I'm not sure it makes much difference. Although maybe if they do go sign David Robertson or something like that, maybe Kittredge might miss more time than I speculated before.
Yeah, I don't think it really tells you anything. Just like if they're in on Sandy Alcantara, insert big name pitcher here, whoever that may be. If they're in on that guy and conversations are ongoing, I don't think, even if Grayson's going to be out an extended period of time, I don't think those conversations are going to speed up. It is what it is at this point. And if you're another team, like if you're the Marlins, are you really going to say Sandy Alcantara, trade him now? Like right now at this point, like I'm going to wait. Especially he looks this good in spring training. I'm going to let him eat a little bit, let some more injuries pile up, and let the bidding war begin closer to the trade deadline. But yeah, I don't think, because whether or not Elias is aggressive right now and to go off and get another big arm at the moment, I don't think it's specifically because of an injury. Like the trade discussions are going to continue to happen naturally and come to fruition or not. I think the only move, again, I see is there's going to be a lot of roster churn coming up, and the Orioles will be active there. And I'm sure we'll see a couple names get cycled through over the next couple of weeks. But that's just natural roster cycle that this organization is going to do to try to find the next Danny Coulomb or someone like that. So yeah, no concern there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if they're keeping an eye on Alcantara or another pitcher, they're not going to become more desperate and give up more than they want to give up because of Grayson Rodriguez's injury. And just reading between the lines of the way this offseason unfolded, I'm just speculating here, but my sense is that the reason a deal didn't come together was because of prospects not matching up or teams not valuing players the same way the Orioles value them or vice versa, and not a money issue. So in other words, if it was just a few more $1 million that could make Sandy Alcantara or Pablo Lopez an Oriole tomorrow, yeah, you might put that money on the table now that Grayson Rodriguez is going to be out for a little while, but I don't think you're necessarily going to give up more in terms of players to make that move happen. And the other thing, too, is that I wanted to point this out. Granted, I did not research this thoroughly before we got into this episode, but I feel like the track record lately of pitchers who sign in spring training and then begin the year on the major league roster or come up after a week or two is not that good, at least early on. Blake Snell put together a really good year for the Giants last year, but he got off to a slow start. Jordan Montgomery was a late sign for the Diamondbacks last year. He was terrible. So I don't know if you signed David Robertson now that you're necessarily getting the best version of David Robertson.
Well, I feel like I agree, first of all, but I feel like maybe with relievers, it could be a little bit better than with starting pitchers with the build up if they're trying to rush into that. So, yeah, certainly like a Kyle Gibson or Lance Lynn, I'm not super interested in. I prefer the depth guys we already have, like Povich, even Albert Suarez, Brandon Young looked great this spring before being optioned. So stick with that home when it comes to starters. Maybe with relievers, you think you can ramp someone up pretty quickly out of the bullpen. Maybe that's better, but it's kind of weird that Robertson's still a free agent, honestly, anyway. So I think it could be speculated that he's either just old and doesn't want to take a minor league deal, but he had a great year last year. So maybe he's dealing with an injury himself. Who knows?
Yeah, I'll pass on the old guy that's been sitting at home. You can find a younger arm that somebody like a team like the Rays, there's always a guy that they want to keep. They should keep on the roster, but the roster crunch is just too much and someone gets cut. Pounce on that guy. But it's either way.
In the Champions League knockout phase, every decisive moment gives you goosebumps.
I get those goosebumps every time.
No, would you believe this?
The UEFA Champions League Round of 16. Stream every match live exclusively on Paramount+.
There are some things in life that just shouldn't be forgotten, like bringing your keys when you leave the house, setting your fantasy lineup, and most importantly, having Hidden Valley Ranch to watch the game. Especially if you're having pizza. Those creamy, zesty, cool ranch flavors take each cheesy, melty bite to an unforgettable level. Hidden Valley Ranch. Only serious about flavor.
You don't wake up dreaming of McDonald's fries. You wake up dreaming of McDonald's hash browns. McDonald's breakfast comes first. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
But speaking of Gunnar, let's go doomsday scenario here. Gunnar's out for 2 months. What is your starting infield? All right, let's keep it simple. Let's just do the quick IL stint. Gunnar does have to miss the first week or two. What's your starting infield? This is from the Bird is the Word, by the way. What's your starting infield on opening day? Zach?
Starting infield, I think, would look a little bit something like we saw on Monday night between the Orioles and the Pirates. I would have probably Ryan Mountcastle, you're opening up in Toronto, over at first base. Ramon Urias at second. Jordan Westburg at third, and Jackson Holliday at short. I like that lineup the best because I think that if of your two emergency shortstop options, Holliday is better defensively than Westburg. He's played the position more recently. I think he's a little bit more comfortable over there, and you still have that ability to mix and match with Westburg to put him at second base from time to time. In that scenario, and I know we have a question about this coming up, but in that scenario, I'm guessing that Levon Soto or Emmanuel Rivera get the extra roster spot that is open because of Henderson being on the IL. We'll see, but for now, that would be my starting infield.
Yeah, I think Mountcastle, Urias, Holliday, Westburg sounds about right, but I don't know. Is Holliday really ready to take over shortstop at the major league level? If it's for more than a week, maybe not. But if it's that limited absence, then yeah, I think he could easily do that, and get comfortable pretty quickly. I think he's played the position his whole life. So I pretty much agree with Zach.
Samuel Basayo at first base.
Come on, let's do it. Come on.
No, that's going to be I think the lineup you saw tonight against the Pirates, Monday night against the Pirates is what you're going to see. Minus catcher, you're going to see Adley instead of Basayo. But to go back, to continue that question from Garrett wants to know, the Machine or Soto? Or Vasquez? There are three options there. Who gets that spot if it's for 2 weeks or so?
I think it's most likely Soto, but I do like Vasquez, what we saw of him defensively, even at the plate. I really like this guy. I think he's a really sneaky waiver claim there, and he's got two options left. Great depth to have at Norfolk. But yeah, I think Soto seems like he's at least getting the reps that would make it seem like he's the guy if need be for a short time. I think he still has an option left as well. You could have Holliday stay at second, Soto could play some short at least against righties. Right, I think he's a lefty. I don't know a ton about Livan Soto, but it could be a switch hitter. But yeah, I'll say Soto.
Yeah, I'll go with Soto too. He does have options remaining and can probably be a guy that, like Bob said, you put him out there occasionally against righties, or if you're not entirely sure of Holiday's defense at shortstop, there's your late game defensive replacement. Now, if it's a longer term injury with Henderson being out, I think that they will try to look for more out of the bat, which could put Emmanuel Rivera in play. But I think if it's a short term injury, Livan Soto has the edge.
I'm just going to say the machine because the guy is right. I was going to say the kid. He's not a kid. He's like 31, 32 years old. You guys are correct. It's going to be either Vasquez or Soto. But can we just take a second to shout out the machine here? Like this kid, go back to his college days. He had a sub 10% strikeout rate when he was at VCU his final 2 years. So a little Virginia bias there. But, even across his minor league career, he's a sub 15% strikeout rate guy. The Phillies actually took him in the Rule 5 draft in 2019 for the A's, who already had a deal in place to trade for him because Oakland was super high on this guy because 2 reasons: his defensive versatility and he walked a ton. He's a very pesky hitter, and he's showing that here in spring training. I know it's not going to be him, but man, the storyline I think would be awesome. If I'm going to have to miss out on Gunnar Henderson for 2 weeks, I like the 31-year-old getting another shot to reach the big leagues, and he's earned it at least. Regardless, I'm going to enjoy watching him when he's down in Norfolk this year as depth, but just shout out to him, man. What a fantastic spring training after spending I don't know how long he's been in Mexico, but at least last year he was in Mexico. Getting another chance here.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like he's bigger than he was the last time around in the pros in the US. So yeah, seems like he can impact the ball. I'll definitely enjoy watching him at Norfolk. I don't see it happening out of spring training. But I'll go into a fun question here. If you're a member of our Discord channel, and if you're not, why not? Where are you? Let's go. Join up. But patron KTGTV likes to ask questions, 5 questions of everyone that hops on, just to get their quick thoughts on some hot topics that tend to pop up on the Discord every once in a while. And he said, interested to hear our thoughts on these questions, just to get that out there. So number 1, thoughts on Ryan Mountcastle, keep or trade. Number 2, thoughts on Jorge Mateo, good, bad, indifferent. Number 3, thoughts on Mullins. Should he play a lot? Should he hit against lefties? Number 4 is, do you like bunting? Would you like to see the Orioles utilize bunting in games? And number 5, what is the better WAR, F WAR or B WAR? Let's start with Zach.
So by every so often these pop up in Discord, do you mean every morning approximately between 8:25 and 8:45 a.m. and for 3 minutes at a time before it cycles over to the next thing?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just joking around with them. So for number 1, you're keeping him for now because you removed the wall in. I don't think that Kobe Mayo is breaking the door down right now to take over that spot from him. You see what you can get from Mountcastle with a more advantageous dimensions at Camden Yards this year. Mateo, I'm kind of middle of the road on Mateo. He is what he is, so I guess I would say meh. He's a nice weapon off the bench for his speed and his defense when he's healthy. Not much more than that. Cedric Mullins is one of the streakiest hitters on the planet. When he is locked in, you should play him against lefties, but when he's not, he shouldn't be anywhere near left-handed pitching. Bunting for a hit in the right situation, don't have a problem with it. Sacrifice bunts, no, don't like them at all. Suicide squeeze is fun if you can pull it off and that run wins you the game. Otherwise, again, not a huge fan of that. Number 5, I honestly forget now what the difference between F4 and B4 is. I know that they've closed the gap over the years, and at one point I know I preferred B4, so I'll stick with that. But I'm not entirely sure that I'm up to speed on it.
Yeah, with that one, I don't know what goes into him either. I did Don't know anymore. I was going to look it up. Don't care. It's F4. It's Fangraphs. I only use Baseball Reference to look up college players' summer ball stats, I think. And at this point, Fangraphs is incorporating college stats. I'm Team Fangraphs. But the other question is Mountcastle. All offseason, I was on Team Trade him. Like, even with the wall coming in and a hopeful rebound, like, statistically, he's pretty replaceable. But I have since, I think, bought into it a little bit and invested a lot into Mountcastle's resurgence. And it would greatly benefit my bank account if he did that in Baltimore. So I'm going to say stick in Baltimore just for this year. And let's see that rebound. Mateo, same. I'm just mad. If he's on the team, I'm going to cheer for him. I'm not going to sit here and boo a guy. Like, unless you're just an absolutely terrible human being off the field, like, you're on this team, you're an Oriole, I'm going to cheer for him. I want you to do well. So if Mateo's on the roster, I hope he succeeds. But if they DFA'd him tomorrow, I probably wouldn't think about him again. Mullins, it's a tough one because, yeah, it's when he's hot, he's hot. But I don't see why you need to play him against lefties. Like, Colton Cowser is more than adequate out there in center field, 96 percentile arm strength. He had an 89 WRC plus against lefties last year. Not super great, obviously, but Cedric Mullins was 43. And I'm willing to place my bet on Colton Cowser improving in that area who versus Cedric Mullins, who is 6 years older. So, yeah, I'm going to go with you got Cowser, you got O'Neill, you've got Kerstad looking pretty good this spring. I think you've got enough options where you don't need to hit. You got Ramon Laureano here now in town. I don't think you need to play Cedric Mullins against the lefties there. I was trying to find the projections too. I think Cedric Mullins again is projecting to be like super terrible against lefties. Bunting, I do see the value in it in certain situations. Frederick Bencosme almost, we had the hopes of Frederick Bencosme making Bunting wonderful, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm scarred by Bunting because I watch so much college baseball and no one loves Bunting more than a mid-major college baseball coach. Not even mid-major, just this weekend, I'm watching Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, and it's like their 1 or 2 hole hitter. Bases are empty. It's early in the game, like third or fourth inning, I think. There are 2 outs. Virginia Tech is already up by 1. The kid goes up and bunts, which obviously was the direction given him by the coach. But he can't lay down the bunt. He gets 2 strikes on him. What does he do? He hits a home run. It's the most annoying thing ever. I was literally yelling at my laptop as I'm watching this game. I don't care. No. I get it in certain situations, but honestly, in April, May baseball regular season games, I'd prefer if we not bunt. Swing away, get on base. I am team, let's be super aggressive on the base paths. I like that talk coming out of Orioles camp. But swing to get on base, not bunt to get on base. And then we're cooking.
Okay, I'll start from the top. Mountcastle, I think at this point in the season where we are specifically today, I would keep him for now. Obviously, I was team trade him over the offseason. I want to make room for Mayo if he's still here, Basayo in a month or two when he's ready to come up and be an everyday superstar. But I think at this point, you might want to wait until around the trade deadline. Maybe there's a team that needs some power from first base, DH type, and you can make like a sneaky, buy and sell at the same time type deal, like we kind of saw a little bit last year, but more from the major league side. So that's Mountcastle. Mateo, fine with him being 26 man, being some depth. He can come in a pinch, play some solid defense on infield, pinch run if you need it. He can hit lefties a little bit, but like Nick, like if he was released today after we finished recording this podcast, I'd be like, well, that was fun while it lasted, and it would be fine. Let's see. Mullins, I think he should be a strict platoon player in center field. He starts every game against right-handed pitching. Cowser starts every game in center field against lefties. And then you can always bring him in later for defensive replacement and a pinch hit against a righty later on. Bunting should be banned from the game of baseball. No, not really. But I just think who other than Cedric Mullins or Enrique Bradfield at some point is even going to be a guy that should be bunting for a base hit. So yeah, unless it's like 13th inning, runner starts on second base. If you want to bunt with anyone but Jorge Mateo, who can't lay one down to save his life, sure, I guess so. But still, I prefer not to bunt in that situation personally. And number 5, it's F4, and it's not even close.
We'll go now to this question from Bobby Jones, and it's about Samuel Basallo's defense. Any word from coaches or those around the org on Basallo's defensive improvement? He has passed the eye test this spring, but haven't seen him do much blocking, which seems to be his biggest weakness. Thoughts there, Nick?
I mean, I haven't watched it, so I don't know. Steve last week was pretty bullish on the defense. Keith Wall's report has been pretty bullish on the defense. I do think that's an area, though, that, of course, he's going to work hard at progressing this year. So, I mean, I don't have anything specific that I've seen personally. So,
that was for Bobby Jones. A reference to The Wire. He's the Wire King. Basallo, man, I saw him block some pitches today when I was watching. He looks really comfortable back there. I'm not going to lie. If it was up to me, he'd be on the opening day roster. That's how high on Basallo I am. So it could be just me fanboying out, but I think he looks pretty good. I don't know what the weaknesses are specifically. I'm sure he can work on little things here and there, but Basallo, he's the guy. Very good analysis.
Yeah, there's still some fundamental things that I think Basallo is going to be working to clean up with blocking balls in the dirt. And honestly, I think this particular time of the year is one of the hardest to gauge that, because he's back behind the plate with pitchers he's probably never worked with before in some cases, especially if he's in there early in the game for maybe 6 or 7 innings before he's pulled. So it's a little tough right now to dissect how his defense looks. I will say that I think the pitch framing, as far as the eye test is concerned, has looked decent. The arm strength looks really good. The arm accuracy seems to be coming along nicely. And as far as blocking balls in the dirt, I agree that probably is his biggest weakness at this point. I think it's getting better, but I haven't seen anything in camp specifically that makes me think it's gotten a lot better or a lot worse.
It's so hard not to get excited about Basallo, man. Like we can sit here and like we were before the show, like saying, "All right, Kobe Mayo, like, come on, give us something, man." But meanwhile, Basallo's over there just continues to rake, and it's
showing out.
And it even for me, who was like, I'm cool with being extremely patient here with Basallo. He's so young. If he's improving this much defensively, let him continue to do that down there, make him an even better player. But when you get to watch him, as rare as we do this spring training, but when we do get to watch him, he's showing out like that, it's impossible not to get.
I swear, even when he fouls the ball back, like I'm like, oh my God, he just swung so hard. His bat is so fast. If he connected with that, it would have gone 500 feet. Like, he's so fun to watch.
And I go, but just one more thing about Basallo. Every time we get on Basallo, we can just do. That's what we'll just do. A Basallo episode every week. I just go back to when we had Nico Goodrum on. As one of my favorite episodes I think we've ever done still. And I go back to Nico Goodrum. Nico Goodrum played with Yordan Alvarez. And when he unprompted said, "That's Yordan Alvarez," I know everyone jokes about, we got baby Yordan. And it's this whole big joke. But when Nico Goodrum, who has sat in that same dugout as Yordan Alvarez, immediately compared him to Yordan after playing with Basallo as well in Norfolk last year, that's what sent me over the edge. But I'm going to assume this is, I've been staring at this. I'm assuming this is the bird is the word. The next question here.
Yes.
It comes from, he has a question about Chase McDermott. Let's talk about a top pitching prospect here. Do you think McDermott will make a difference for the Orioles once he is healthy, Bob?
Yeah, I do. I think he's going to be in Norfolk's starting rotation, and I think he's going to be the guy that's behind the guy who's maybe behind the other guy. What I'm trying to say is Cade Povich is first up. Maybe Brandon Young is second up at this point, and then McDermott is still there. But if he's pitching lights out and they need someone, he's going to come up and start a game. But once the trade deadline passes, August, September rolls around, he's going to be a weapon for the Orioles out of the bullpen heading into the stretch run into the playoffs. So I think bare minimum, he's going to be very, very useful down the stretch with a power arm that batters can't square up even when they make contact. So yeah, absolutely. Give me some money on. You're the gambler, Nick. Is that a bet that's available? Chase McDermott is an impact pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles in the month of September.
If it's out there, hammer it. Take it.
He'll have a role as long as he's healthy because the starter's pitch mix is there. But like Bob just said, he could really be an effective weapon out of the bullpen for the Orioles down the stretch. And we talked a little bit earlier about what Kittredge's injury could mean for the bullpen. And we are probably going to see him this season and see him back healthy. But we also know that the bullpen depth is going to be tested in some way, shape, or form. And if the Orioles have McDermott as a guy they could go to in September to fill in some innings, even if it's more medium leverage spots, that's going to help them out a lot.
Yeah, I'm only struggling with McDermott because I do agree. I think my immediate thought was he's going to be on the DL Hall track this year, where later in the year we do see him make an impact in the bullpen. But when I think longer term, I know this wasn't the question, but expand on it a little bit here. Longer term, I'm at the DL Hall point here with McDermott, where I just put him in the bullpen and keep him there. And I know the Orioles are not going to do that because his ceiling is so high. And I know they're going to keep him and stretch him out as a starter, and they want him healthy, and they want him contributing as a starter. Look, we're already talking about testing the depth, and a healthy McDermott would greatly help that depth this year. And it's someone who could get his feet wet a little bit more. He only made one appearance in the big leagues last year. Get a couple more appearances this year, and then next year he could be really cooking for a more full-time rotation spot. I think that's what the Orioles would prefer, but I daydream about what Chase McDermott could do out of the bullpen full-time with that stuff. It's absolutely disgusting, literally. So he's going to make an impact at some point this year. I do think he's going to follow that DL Hall path. Long term, I'm conflicted on where I prefer to see them go with McDermott.
In the Champions League knockout phase, every decisive moment gives you goosebumps.
I get those goosebumps every time.
No, would you believe this?
The UEFA Champions League Round of 16. Stream every match live exclusively on Paramount+.
There are some things in life that just shouldn't be forgotten, like bringing your keys when you leave the house, setting your fantasy lineup, and most importantly, having Hidden Valley Ranch to watch the game. Especially if you're having pizza. Those creamy, zesty, cool ranch flavors take each cheesy, melty bite to an unforgettable level. Hidden Valley Ranch. Only serious about flavor.
All right. So EJ would like to know, what's a prospect that has proven each of you wrong, either wildly surpassed your expectations or never broke through? Nick?
I like this question. Make you think back about things we've said, things we've written, guys we've hyped up and such, guys we missed out on. I think a guy who wildly surpassed my expectations, honestly, unfortunately, he's not in the organization anymore, was Moises Chase. That was the first one that came to my mind. Like, yeah, he was in the back end of our top 30, like when we first started the show 4 or 5 years ago. But I never would have imagined, if the farm system was in a place as it was today, that Chase would be a top 30 guy in the system, considering the walk issues. And then now look at the praise he's getting coming out of Philadelphia. I think Phillies fans are, or not just Phillies fans, but like national like prospect media are expecting Chase to be a force for the Phillies at some point this year. But a guy who I think that I kind of, proved me wrong. The big name that popped up to my mind was Noah Denoyer. I was such a big Noah Denoyer guy, just because he doesn't get drafted through 40 rounds. Orioles analytics team finds this guy, gives his name to a scout in the North Woods League, who watches him. He ends up signing with the Orioles, has this breakout year when he gets to Double-A, goes to the Arizona Fall League Fall Star, gets added to the 40-man roster. Legitimate major league quality stuff from Noah Denoyer. But then in 2023 season, he's on the 40-man roster. He gets DFA'd. He struggles in Norfolk. The walk rate spiked, has Tommy John surgery, his second Tommy John surgery now. missed all of 2024. He's now 27 years old, and he's still in the system. He should be in Norfolk this year, but he's 27 years old, going to be working back from his second Tommy John. You wish him the best, but man, I was pretty high on Noah Denoyer, 3 years ago.
So for me, the guy that looking at this question a little bit differently, one player that sticks in the back of my mind of I really wish I had put him on a top 30 list was Tyler Wells. I remember when the Orioles got him in the Rule 5 draft, looking at scouting reports. I remember a lot of Twins-focused outlets were upset that they had lost Wells in the Rule 5 draft. And I looked at the numbers, and I could see what they were talking about. He had success in Double-A. There seemed to be back-end starter potential with the ability to ramp up out of the bullpen. But I remember being down to the last few spots on the list that year and considering Wells anywhere from like 27 down to 30 and not putting him on there because by that point he had not pitched in, I believe, 2 years, maybe a little bit longer. And the year before, the Orioles had 2 Rule 5 picks in camp that they sent back to their previous teams before spring training ended. So I didn't put Wells on my list, and I regretted it within a few months. And even if he doesn't come out from the other side of the second Tommy John surgery and contribute much to the Orioles, he's still done a lot by being a serviceable and at times very good reliever on bad teams and a really flexible option in 2023 that held the rotation steady in the first half and then gave the bullpen a little bit of a boost in the second half of the season. And then for the guy that kind of fell short of my expectations, Pedro Severino, and it's a completely different angle on this one. I was covering the Nationals when Severino was coming up through the minor leagues. And at that point in time, he was a glove first, no bat prospect. Everyone you talk to loved the glove. They loved his ability to block the ball in the dirt. They loved the arm, the way he could throw out base runners. Everything about Severino's defense graded out really highly. Then I don't know what happened. He got to the major leagues, and every defensive metric showed him as a bad defender. I don't know if he didn't get better. I don't know if he was worn out when he came up through the minor leagues and maybe his knees gave out. I don't know if he came into the minor leagues at the wrong time when pitch framing was not necessarily being scouted. So we're still looking at blocking balls in the dirt and throwing arm as the way to evaluate a catcher. I don't know what it was, but somehow the report on Severino as this defensive whiz behind the plate did not match up with the major league player he became. It was so confusing to me. Still is.
No, because my only memory of him is that he was the catcher that couldn't catch. Could hit a little bit, surprisingly. But yeah, for me, I'll say a couple that I missed on. First one, Yusniel Diaz. I know he was the much hyped guy for the Manny Machado trade and he started out strong when he came over. But after seeing him in person at Double-A Bowie, I want to say 2021 or 2022, the eye test, he looked like a man amongst boys out on the field. He had the presence about him. The ball sounded different off the bat. It was just
the
wow,
arm.
okay. Yeah,
the outfield arm.
The tools, they were all there. They were all loud. And the fact that he's basically washed out of baseball at 28 years old with one plate appearance in his career is kind of shocking to me, because even if he wasn't going to be an everyday player, there's no way I would have told you that he would washed out the way he did. And the other side of the spectrum, Felix Bautista, we knew how he could do if he could ever start finding the strike zone, but to go from low A to the best relief pitcher in all of baseball in a span of 2 or 3 years. Don't think I had that one on my bingo card, or he would have at least shown up on a top 50 prospect list for us,
Right. Everyone had Adam Stauffer above Felix Bautista back in the day. So
I certainly did.
Everyone did. So everyone missed that one. Just unbelievable story.
I just thought of one more, Mike Yastrzemski. That is the reason I don't say old for the level anymore, because that was the book on Yastrzemski coming up through the Orioles system was, he's hitting well at Double-A, he's old for the level. gets to AAA, not much there, and then Orioles end up trading him. And I still think that if you look objectively, that's been the worst move of the Mike Elias era. I'll go down this question from Bobby.
Tyler Erb.
Yep. Given the untouchables, what's the best package the O's could/would make for an impact arm? And he puts it in parentheses here. Please don't say Keeler Morphe. Bob, I'm suspecting you're thinking along the same line, so I'll let you start.
I'm not going to say Keeler Morphe. There's no way I'm trading Baseball America's sleeper prospect of the day today, Monday, the 10th of March, as we speak. Yeah, I think, again, I've said it earlier this episode, Sandy Alcantara, got to have him. I mean, he's got basically 3 years of control left. He's hitting 100 miles per hour with a stuff plus of 97 on his four seam, and his four other pitches are all pretty well above 100. So 4+ pitches, including a changeup, I think has a 130 stuff plus so far this spring. Looks pretty healthy to me. Still only 28 years old. I want to say, give me that. I think you will probably have to give up Kobe Mayo and forget his struggles at spring training. It's been like 25 plate appearances. He's still a top 10, 20 prospect in all of baseball. That is going to hurt to give up. But if you're going to do it, I think a potential top of the rotation arm for the next 3 years is pretty good reason to do so. So I think a package led by Kobe Mayo might be what it takes to get a guy like him.
Yeah, I think if you're talking Sandy Alcantara specifically, I do think you have to include Kobe Mayo. Like, when you're talking about the Marlins, they're going to want either Samuel Basallo, the star-studded Dominican prospect, or they're going to want Kobe Mayo, the Florida boy, come back home and be our star player. Like, I mean, realistically, we all love Enrique Bradfield Jr. and see what he could bring to the organization. But, like, do we think Enrique Bradfield Jr. has a super high trade value? I don't think so. Vance Honeycutt slid way down the draft. I think there are a lot of teams who are not going to be interested in trading for Vance Honeycutt. Like, I don't see the Orioles. If McDermott was healthy, it'd be easier. But McDermott with the injury issues, I think that makes it more difficult as well. I know the Dylan Beavers thing. I get it. Just joking with everybody. If you need to trade Dylan Beavers, we can trade Dylan Beavers. I'm okay. There are no untouchables. Honestly, except probably Samuel Basallo. But again, how high, even if you're super high on Beavers, he's not going to be able to lead a trade package for Sandy Alcantara. So, yeah, I think it's going to have to start with the Kobe Mayo.
And the reason I'm fixating on Alcantara right now is because I feel like the Marlins are the only team that's going to be willing to trade a guy like him early in the season. I feel like they did last year. They traded a guy. Was it Luis Arraez? They traded early, or somebody last year. They did not wait for the deadline, where I think every other team is going to wait pretty close to the deadline before they decide on moving anybody.
Yeah, I agree, because the Twins could be in the thick of the wild card race at the end of June and not want to move Pablo Lopez. The Padres are probably going to be in contention. So the longer you have those players and you're winning, the harder it gets to trade them. I agree with you guys. I think realistically, any package has to start with Kobe Mayo. As Nick said, I think McDermott's injury probably diminishes the chances you could build a package around him. I don't see Honeycutt, Beavers, Fabian, or Bradfield being a guy that you could build a package around. If you want to go a little bit deeper, let's say you're not getting a top of the rotation arm, but you're getting another version of Zach Eflin, then maybe it comes down to Brandon Young, because Young did look good in spring training, close to Major League ready arm, that if you're a bad team and you trade for Brandon Young, you could plug him in as your number 4 or number 5 right now and at least feel like you've got some ceiling and some development there. But he could even be an upgrade over the guy that you have in place right now. And the reason I bring up Young is that the Orioles, beyond Beavers and Fabian and Mayo, don't really have those AAA, close to Major League ready bats like they've had in years past. So I think you're going to have to start looking at the arms at that point.
Yeah, and you joke all the time about the Padres too, and I trade AJ Preller, a bunch of Dominican Summer League prospects for a Cesar Michael King, but AJ Preller, I think this is it for AJ Preller. He has to win, or I think he's out. And so, he doesn't have a farm system, but I don't think he cares. He's got like two guys. One, he's got Ethan Salas and is it DeVries? He's got 1.5 really good prospects. But I don't think he cares about his farm system anymore because he needs to make some noise at the major league level. But we'll go on from trades. We're on Yoni's question. Yes. Yoni wants to know, where does the team bullpen ERA rank at the end of the year? Bob?
I think that the Orioles will have a top 5 to 7 bullpen. I guess if we're going by ERA, that would be the way to do it. Yeah, I think we're going to have basically a top 5 to 7 bullpen when all is said and done. I think, yeah, Kittredge being out, it definitely hurts. But with Bautista back, I think it helps things kind of fall in place behind him. Spring training numbers mean less than nothing, and especially for veteran relievers who are just like, okay, do I have my stuff? Like Sir Anthony Dominguez has given up a crap ton of runs because he's throwing the ball right down the middle. That's what the heat maps show, and maybe he's just like not worried about command right now. He's just trying to get his stuff right. So I just can't take spring training numbers, especially for relievers, for anything more than they're throwing pitches. So I'm still a huge fan of this bullpen, and even of the guys like Colin Selby, Luis Gonzalez, and Cade Stroud, guys that are just sitting down there waiting. Chase McDermott, Brandon Young, if we need to use them out of the bullpen. So I'm very high on this bullpen, even if Kittredge misses the first half of the season.
Yeah, I still like this bullpen a lot. I see it landing maybe in the 7 to 10 range in terms of ERA. No lower than 10, but I think it would be tough to get higher than 7 or 5. Bautista coming back really is the X factor here. As long as he's able to get back to himself somewhat early in the season, it doesn't even have to be on opening day. If he's back to himself at some point in the first half, and you have Soto, who looked really good after a couple of rough outings right after the trade last year for the Orioles, you have Cano. I agree. I think Dominguez will figure it out in the regular season. The bullpen's going to be fine. Losing Kittredge does hurt a little bit, but it's not going to make or break this team's season.
Yeah, you lose Jacob Webb and Danny Coulomb, but you also lost Cole Irvin and Craig Kimbrell, and you get Felix Bautista. So I see easily top 10. And no one has said the name Keegan Aiken. The dog, the man in this bullpen, Keegan Aiken. Like he had a fantastic year last year. Yeah, I think it was Johan Duran. I think the Twins closer. I think he said the other day, like they asked him about his velo, and he basically said, "I don't care what the velo is. I'm not trying to throw hard." Like perfect example of these relievers. Like Bob said, just throw a pitch. Honestly, that's it with these guys. Dominguez is going to be fine. Soto looks fantastic. After, it was a rough start, but he settled in really well. Honestly, even with Kittredge out, call me crazy, but I love the bullpen.
Completely agree. And last question here comes from BirdFan123 on the Discord, and he says, which baseball movie would you remake/reboot first, and which would you put in the do not touch list? One for each category. You would have full reign on how to approach the reboot. Zach?
So, fun fact, a little bit of background on this question. I actually pulled this out of the movie section of Discord. It was not in the mailbag. I pulled it out of there because I like to check in on the movies channel once a week to see how much Bob is getting roasted for criticizing Shrek, because that seems to be a weekly occurrence now. But to reboot something, I would go with that really bad John Goodman movie about Babe Ruth. Just start all over again. Either make it a limited series or make it an hour-and-a-half movie that focuses on a very specific time period of his life. Find someone else to play him. John Goodman can do a lot of things well. Convincingly playing a professional athlete, even one built like Babe Ruth, is not one of them. So find a better actor or a better actor for that part. Make it either a movie that is focused on 1 or 2 years of his life or a limited series that covers his whole life. Regardless, we don't need a 2-hour epic biopic about Babe Ruth's life again. And then the Do Not Touch, Bull Durham. It was just perfect the first time around. The cast is perfect. The writing is perfect. The way the movie was shot, where it was shot is perfect. That is my favorite baseball movie of all time. And I hope that no one ever tries to remake it because you can't do it.
Orioles fans need a remake of Angels in the Outfield, the Orioles version, because a lot of Orioles fans need to start believing here in this team. Things are going to be okay. This team is the window is wide open. The window is not closing. You guys know I don't watch a ton of movies, and Angels in the Outfield was actually on last night. I watched it for about 15 minutes, and the memories. One of my favorite movies. We need a remake of Angels in the Outfield, but Orioles specific to get Orioles fans believing. That's my answer.
Shrek sucks. Okay. The animation is like you're playing, I think someone said like you're playing Roller Coaster Tycoon from the 90s on the computer. It's like constantly 5 to 10 years behind its time. It's not as funny as it thinks it is. The Puss in Boots movies, those are actually pretty good, but the Shrek movies suck, and I will stand firm on that. But to get to the question, I would say Do Not Touch the Sandlot. It's mostly just nostalgia, but I think that is just like a perfect time capsule movie of a time and a space when America's pastime was all kids cared about, and that is no longer the case. Well, Shohei Ohtani is in Fortnite now, so there is that. But the movie I would reboot, I'm going to say Field of Dreams, because I think it's a little overrated. It's not that great, and no one goes and has a catch. That's kind of weird. You play catch, you don't have a catch, right? But my vision is it's set in the future. Some kid gets his VR AI video game system out, and he's going to go play baseball with the 90s steroid era sluggers and just have a good old time. Mark McGuire carrying a kid on his arm, and Sammy starts to doing his thing. And yeah, that's the way I see it.
Sounds kind of post-apocalyptic, but also fun at the same time.
It's like Ready Player One combined with Field of Dreams.
Well, hopefully we can bring that project to fruition. And if you want to help Bob bring that project to fruition, become a member of our Patreon community today. You can sign up for as little as $3 a month, also join to $5 and $10 levels, and have access to bonus coverage throughout the season, as well as additional perks, including access to our patron-only channels on Discord. That does it for this episode this week. We will be back later this week to break down the Orioles spring breakout roster. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, and YouTube. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, presented by BetOnline and part of the Believe Podcast Network.
There are some things in life that just shouldn't be forgotten, like bringing your keys when you leave the house, setting your fantasy lineup, and most importantly, having Hidden Valley Ranch to watch the game. Especially if wings are on the menu. Those creamy, zesty Cool Ranch flavors take each spicy, savory bite to an unforgettable level. Hidden Valley Ranch, only serious about flavor.
In the Champions League knockout phase, every decisive moment gives you goosebumps.
I get those goosebumps every time.
No, would you believe this?
The UEFA Champions League Round of 16. Stream every match live exclusively on Paramount+.